Hello everyone, it's Dr. P. This is the video that'll accompany as a companion to Chapter 10, Empowering Employees for Success. And I just want to give you the benefit of some of my professional experience when it comes to the material in this chapter. The first thing it talks about is how important the human resource department is to a supervisor in their staffing responsibilities. And I couldn't agree more. I've had the benefit of having some very strong and helpful HR business partners in my career. And they do more than just have employees fill out forms. And what we see in the text on page 368 is really a diagram of all of the things that an HR department can do to help an organization or a supervisor. And I think the key there is it all begins the center of that diagram and organization goals. And the biggest thing that an HR department can do is help an organization achieve its goal. And it does that through many different functions and areas. And you see that on that diagram in figure 10.1. The book talks about the thing that a supervisor needs to do is determine how many employees they're going to need. And sometimes when a company just starts and it's an individual employee, it's easy. It's just them. But as organizations grow and get bigger and larger, clearly one of the roles of an HR department in helping a supervisor is determine how big does the organization need to be. One way to do that is, how much are we expecting to sell? How many customers do we plan on having? Well, how many channels will we be selling in? All those things will determine how much we need to add to our employee base. The chapter talks about the selection process, and in order to do that, there are many steps that a supervisor, in conjunction with the HR, have to take. One of the things we have to do is review the applicant's background. Typically, that's the HR department. They will do reference checks, or they'll check and confirm their transcript, make sure that they have the degrees and they've graduated from whatever institution they said they've done. And maybe even do some drug testing or even legal background checks. But that's all done from an HR department. And then the next step really is to interview a prospective candidate. And here the HR department can help us, preparing the key questions we'd want to talk about. What do we want to ask the employee about? We want to probe and see, do they have the skills and competencies we need and experiences we need? And we do that through having a real good discussion with the employee. And sometimes it takes several interviews, and we use several interviewers to help us do that. The book talks about two different types of interviews, a directive interview and a non-directive interview. From my experience, most interviews kind of are a combination of both. The person who's hiring and the HR department know what questions we need to ask and where we want to take the candidate in that journey. But there's also time for good getting to know the prospective candidate, and also for the candidate to get to know the interviewer and the company. So it's kind of a blend of both of those. Some of the things that are important when interviewing is we need to make sure we open the interview well. We talk to what's the day going to look like, what's this interview going to look like, who you're going to be talking to, what will we ask you about. So that way it sets the interviewee's mind at ease as to what the day is going to look like. Then we explain their job. We ask effective and probing questions. Typically, the supervisor will take notes. I always take notes, and then I keep those notes after the interview process. And then closing the interview is really important. What we do there is we talk about what are the next steps, who will contact you, perhaps how long will it take for us to make a decision? Are there other candidates that we're interviewing? So basically, we want to let the interviewer leave without, any ambiguity as to what happens next. The text talks about a post-interview evaluation form. I've always used those when I interview. It doesn't need to be the one that they show on page 388. It could be one you create on your own. But when I've done interviewing with teams, I've had every one of the people who were interviewing a prospective new hire to fill out that form, so we had that kind of documentation. The chapter then goes on to talk about, the value of involving employees in the hiring decision. I think that's a great function to do. One, it empowers the employee. It lets them know that we value them, we value their input, and we're happy to have them part of the process. They can also help determine, will this candidate fit in to our team and to this organization? Then the book goes on to talk about onboarding, which, as we all know, is how do we bring a new employee into our organization, and what things do we do in order to keep them bought into the organization, to feel at home, to know what they're doing, to know where things are. And I strongly suggest using a checklist. I've created a checklist, and when I work with some companies as a consultant, I help build a checklist for them so they can onboard new employees. The last couple things in the chapter are around mentoring and training, whether it be on-the-job training or off-the-job training. And clearly those are important. The only thing I really want to talk about really is mentoring. And I've had mentors, I've been a mentor. I think it's very important and valuable for an organization to provide that resource for an employee. Basically what we're doing is we're taking and pairing a newer employee or perhaps an unskilled employee and matching them up with a veteran employee who's got great skills and experiences. And then that mentor helps the employee grow and develop and be more valuable for the organization. So if you've never been a mentor and never had a mentor, I strongly encourage you to request one from your organization or offer to be one. Again, chapter 10 is a pretty straightforward chapter about how HR can help a supervisor hire, onboard, and train their new employees. So anyway, that's all I have for today. I look forward to talking to you again in the future.